What is up, everybody, and welcome to Grinderslive for MLB, the flagship show. We're going to take you all the way up until crunch time, and then they're going to take you all the way up until lock on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon around the DFS world. We got a big 13-game slate on hand. I'm filling in for Stevie today, and hope everything's all right with him. And joined by this is my first show with Handsome Grant in quite some time. It's been a while since I think I had to go all the way back to like the poker games during quarantine. For the last time I talked to
You
Grant.
watched me shave myself.
Yeah, I was trying to talk you into shaving all kinds of stuff, but you wouldn't fall for it. You wouldn't fall for it. How you doing, Grant?
I'm doing great. I'm out here in sunny Las Vegas.
What's it called?
Sunny Lost Wages, as I like to
There
call
you
it.
go. That's catchy. That's catchy.
Yeah, no, I'm out here. I've been doing a little bit of a road trip for the last week or so. Still working during it, but just with NBA regular season ending, just wanted to get out of Colorado for a little bit. But it's nice out here. It's 95 degrees. We've got a pool. Life's good. Just occasional drives to the border.
All right. Well, you're out there in Vegas. I think the people who are kind of in their own state, their own little world here, and they don't know how Vegas is right now. Talk to me through. People are wearing masks, or everybody's just going just like
it's about like 40%. You're not supposed to wear one if you're supposed to wear one if you're not vaccinated, but there's only 40% of people are wearing them. But it's 100% capacity. Everything's open. It's kind of beautiful here.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Well, that's nice. Nice to know that. So. I don't want to dip into your personal life, Grant, but are you vaccinated or?
I am vaccinated. Yeah.
Good man.
I put so many horrible things into my body. This is probably the safest thing I've ever put into my body.
Yeah, you'll be all right. All right. Well, that's good to know, man. So we got a big, nice slate here on tap today, and we're going to pick your brain on it because you're the genius here, man. But before we get into the actual players and all the other stuff, got to take care of a little housekeeping and let you know that the RG Premium subscription with the Select Combo Premium, all that good stuff is available for Rotogrinders. And you can pick anything you want except for NASCAR. That's Stevie. Stevie, the guy who's took the day off here today, he's the NASCAR guy, and it's an expensive package. So you can't get that on there, but you can combo up any other sports you want. Actually, I think we have a link for $10. I don't know if that link's still active, but pretty sure we got the link for $10 off the first month if you sign up for the premium. It's good stuff. You really can't beat it. I mean, the baseball, so many things that are just money in the bank. You got the plate IQ is worth it right there, that alone. Or Cheese's article every day, just about every day, is worth it alone. But you can get all that stuff, and then you can get rankings and all kinds of insider tips from guys like Grant and everything else. So STL cards. So that's that. You got that. That's good stuff. Also, don't forget Big Brain. Big Brain is a thing now. Free crunch time on Fridays are presented by Big Brain, but today's Tuesday. We're still rocking some Big Brain today, though. You got it's a trivia app. Grant, have you played on Big Brain yet?
No.
Grant, are you aware that there's an app called Big Brain? I'm pretty sure Grant's frozen, but I don't think he's played. I don't know if he's played.
There we go.
There you go. You got it.
Son of a biscuit. What's going on?
Have you been on Big Brain yet, Grant?
Yeah, sorry. I still haven't. I need to. I enjoy a good trivia night. I'm more like doing it in person at a bar, but I like a good trivia. And
It's fun, man. It's fun. I've been on there. I've been active on it. It's a blast there. After lineups log, I like to go in there and see what the topics are for the trivia games. And if it's something that suits me, I'll jump in there. It's fun, man. It's a blast. Tonight's topics. In fact, I've got a list for them for you guys. So tonight we're gonna have a little classic arcade tonight. If you're a classic arcade guy, maybe that's something you can jump in. Here's one I might just partake in. 90s movies. I think that's kind of in my wheelhouse. I'm not sure. The 90s were kind of weird. I should have been following a lot more movies and music, but I was doing other things. So I might not be that good at it, but it sounds like something I should be good at. So 90s movies is something. Famous sports firings. Okay. We can get behind that. We can get that. Cheese is an actual topic tonight.
Oh, gosh. I could crush some cheese trivia.
You gotta get your app downloaded then so you can crush that cheese. And then Grand Theft Auto, that'd definitely not be in my wheelhouse. I'm not a video game guy, but those are some of the topics tonight, guys. I like to jump in there after lock. You can too. Big Brain app. Just download it. It's fun stuff. It's DFS for trivia, basically, is what it is. So with all that being said, guys, the show here is free on this here flagship show. So all we're really asking, just give us a little like, maybe a subscribe, all that good stuff. And don't forget that you fire off all your questions right now. Devin, the producer, taking care. He's writing them all down, word for word. Who asked the question? He's got all that stuff at his disposal. And here, about 15 or 20 minutes before we get off the air, we're going to bring him in, and he's going to ask all these questions. We'll get them all answered for you. So any questions you got, big or small, sports, non-sports, whatever you got, fire them off in chat. We'll take care of them. Guaranteed to get you a response for them later on. So with all that being said, I think it's time to start talking some players here, because this is a big one. This is a 13 gamer. It ain't like last night where it was like lineups kind of made themselves. It's not that hard. Like now you got 13, you got a lot of decisions, and we're going to start at pitcher, where the decisions are, buddy, the decisions are tough tonight. Like there's a lot of things going on at pitcher. You've got a lot of good pitchers. There's a lot of bad matchups for those pitchers. It's just a weird night. Talk me through. Let's start off at the top with some of the higher projected guys with the bigger salaries. You know, the Scherzers and the DeGroms and all those guys. How do you feel about those guys? Who's your favorite guys? Who's your favorite guys to fade? How do you feeling about that top tier of pitching?
Yeah, so there's just an absolute boatload of pitchers there up at the top. They're in fantastic spots, or just too cheap, or any number of different things. I mean, obviously we start off with DeGrom. How late he's going to pitch in the game. He's still DeGrom, but he's coming back after that injury. We don't know if he's going to go his full allotted amount of pitches, his full outing. But, I mean, I think he's a good play regardless. I'm kind of leaning a little bit more towards Scherzer at this point. They're projected for around the same percent of ownership. Scherzer just has a longer leash. I'd expect him to go later into the game. Worst matchup going up against Cincinnati, but still overall a decent spot for him, and he can just absolutely mow through guys and go late into the game. So up at the top, I think Scherzer gets a slight nod to DeGrom, although I don't think you necessarily really need to go with them. Got Musgrove sitting at 9.5K going up against Milwaukee. Has an extreme hitters umpire, which hurts a little bit, but I think he's a viable option. Flaherty, I'm crossing out going up against the White Sox. Burns going up against San Diego, like decent spot, but up at the top, I think Scherzer is the top option, but you can realistically go anywhere from DeGrom, Scherzer, Musgrove, Flaherty, Burns, Kershaw, Berrios. Any of those guys are very much in play, so it's an interesting spot. I think that you're better off going with the mid-tier and upper mid-tier with Giolito and Kershaw.
Really? Okay. Yeah. All right, I got that. So DeGrom, he's just the highest priced guy, and it's not even close, really. He didn't get like bumped down because he missed games or anything. All right, what's your primary site tonight, Grant? Or are you gonna play them all?
I'm mostly playing on SuperDraft tonight.
Okay. What's your like target score? What would you want out of
just because it was so weak? I just set my lineups.
What would you want out of DeGrom? Like tonight, what would you feel good about?
30. I'd feel good at 30. I'd want more, but I feel good at 30, which doesn't seem like the most likely outcome. That's why I'm kind of going with Scherzer, because I know that he can go later in the game. I'm getting more of a ceiling potential with Scherzer than I am with DeGrom. Like that's the thing. Like DeGrom may get me 30 several times in this spot out of 10 times, but am I going to get a 40-plus point game? Probably not. Scherzer offers that ability, or a 35-plus spot. That's why I'm mostly going Scherzer, and then just saving down money, getting lineups a little bit different. I mean, DeGrom's projected for 33% ownership. Scherzer's projected for 35% ownership. So I'm more interested in just kind of pivoting off the chalk.
Okay, that next wave of pitchers there, that middle tier, and you can save a little bit of money and still get a quality guy. Is there anybody that jumps out to you?
Giolito. Giolito's 8.7K. Projected for under 10% ownership. Matchup versus St. Louis isn't bad. He's been a little bit wild this year, a little bit inconsistent, but he's a solid overall pitcher. I think that he's probably my top option. Him and maybe Kershaw going in a tough matchup versus Houston. He's 8K though. Like, he's cheap. He's not going to go terribly late in the game a lot of times, but he'll go late enough to pay off that 8K price tag. I think that he is a fantastic option. But my favorite one I think, is Gausman. Gausman has been absolutely fantastic so far this season. He's going up against the Diamondbacks with Kettle Marte back in the lineup. Yeah, the dome's going to be open, but Gausman's still like sitting at 30% K rate on the season, below average walk guy. Like, he's just in a solid form this season. And he's sitting there at 7.2%. I mean, everyone's thinking about Andrew Heaney. Like, Heaney going up against Texas, it's a pretty solid spot versus lefties this season, bottom half of the league and half the categories. The problem is Heaney, you just don't play him when he's chalk. Like, that's kind of my belief in him. He's given up a ton of home runs this season. He's given up a ton of hard contact, ton of fly balls this season and in the past. He's a decent strikeout pitcher. He's a solid real life pitcher, but he has 3 games over 30 points, 2 games in the negative, 2 games in single digits. Like, it's very boom or bust with him. Like, you don't know what he's going to get. So when you get him at 5, 6, 10% ownership, even 15%, I'm entirely fine with it. He's going to be over 40% owned, I think, on this slate. Like, everyone's going, he's 6.2K, solid matchup versus Texas, decent amount of strikeouts, but not a ton in this lineup. Everyone is going to play him. And I think the easiest possible pivot is just over to Gausman at 7.2K. Like, DeGrom and Heaney, you switch over to Gausman and Scherzer, and you pretty much got 25, 35% less ownership, and you got the same basic points potential.
Yeah, he's getting a big projection here, and you know, people are they're opto slaves these days, and they're gonna plug him in there because of that big projection. I'm kind of with you, but we got some bigger names that are even cheaper. At least I'm looking at the Yahoo salaries right now, but I don't know what they are. They're probably pretty similar to other ones, but we got some bigger big names that are even cheaper than those guys. Tell me if any of these guys, are guys you could jump out and actually play if you're entering here tournament. Rich Hill against KC. He's been off and on this year. What do you think about Rich Hill?
I mean, he's fine. Like, again, he's not like, I'd rather pay 200 more for Giolito. I'd rather play slightly less for Kershaw or Gausman. Like, Rich Hill's fine. I mean, looking at his last 5 outings, he's been over 13 points in each of them, averaging around 23 points per the last 5 outings, 24 points the last 5 outings. So he's been solid overall. Match versus KC isn't the worst. KC ballpark isn't going to be in play because I believe they're over. Wait, are they over in Tampa Bay? Maybe I got that wrong. Yeah, they are over in Tampa Bay. So the KC ballpark isn't the worry that it has been because they're over in Tampa Bay. So 3.5 implied team total. Not projected to get a ton of ownership on the slate. I have no problem with it. It's just he's not I'm not building a ton of lineups tonight, and I'm not playing much over on most sites outside of SuperDraft. So he's fine. He's all right. I'd just rather go with the guys around his price tag, specifically Giolito.
Okay, let's go. I'm gonna go down even further. Then maybe I can tempt you with could you tell me right offhand, without even actually having known that I was going to ask you this question, could you tell me right offhand, does Seattle have better splits as hitters against righties or lefties, or does it heavily lean one way or the other, depending?
I want to say that it heavily leans towards righties.
Yeah, so lefties can give them problems. So what about Mr. Cole Irvin, who's been pretty good this year for Oakland? What do you think?
I have no problem with that, like, especially if you can't get up to Gausman. He's 6.7K. I think that he doesn't offer nearly the same ceiling as Heaney does. But yeah, you're right. Like, we saw what was it? Skubal did against Seattle. I think they struck out 8-9 batters, something like that. Just went right through him. Irvin's been pretty solid. He's definitely priced down from where he was because he had a bad matchup versus Houston, bad matchup versus Minnesota. Not easy matchup versus Tampa Bay, but prior to that, he was just cruising for a 4 or 5 game stretch. Seattle's definitely had some problems going up against lefties pretty much all season long. He's not going to come in much ownership because everyone in that price range is just going to go straight to Heaney. So, like, anytime you can find a pretty close to direct pivot off the chalk that's put up similar numbers on the season and has a similarly good matchup, plus huge bump is playing over in Oakland and with an extreme pitcher umpire, I would take Irvin over Heaney 10 times out of 10 tournaments.
Okay, I like that. Nice call. All right, and just one last, and I'm hoping we're on the same page with this guy, but he's a big name and he's a cheap salary in some places, and he just threw a no-hitter Corey Kluber. Any interesting in Kluber?
No, so Kluber, like was the other day when he was throwing his no-hitter, I was on him, and it was because of the matchup. I mean, I'm not saying I was heavily on him, but I was on him because of the matchup. But like, this is not the matchup. Kluber, you look at his pitch type, he really doesn't have an out pitch for righties, and you've got absolutely fantastic hitting righties all the way up and down the lineup. Outside of Tellez and Panic are the only two lefties in the lineup. So Kluber this season, 222 WOBA. 0.026 ISO on the season versus lefties. Righties, he's just an average to below average pitcher. Like, gives up hard contact, gets decent ground balls, doesn't strike out a lot of guys. He's good versus lefties, though. Yeah, throws his changeup a ton with a 50% whiff rate on the season. He throws that cutter a lot more versus lefties than he does versus righties. Like, his fastball, curveball just aren't the same as his other pitches going up against righties. So going up against a hard-hitting righty team, he might struggle with some problems, especially the fact that a few of these guys are big fly ball hitters. So Kluber is not someone I'm really looking at. People might be chasing him because of the no-hitter. He might be unowned, but I think in any case, he's really not worth it because this isn't the same matchup as Texas that has all those lefties are the ones you're worried about in the lineup. This is a hard-hitting righty team that I don't think Kluber's going to do very well. He's had two good outings this season versus Detroit and versus Texas, two teams that he profiles very well against. He's going to struggle against Toronto, I think, and I'd much rather stack Toronto than I would play Kluber.
Yeah, I agree with that one. So we're on the same page there. We're going to get to some hitters here in just a minute. Before we do, I want to drop this the SuperDraft link. You sign up using the promo code Grinders. That's with a capital G, Grinders. And you get for a $50 instant deposit bonus alongside of a deposit match bonus of up to $500. So just basically plug in the promo code Grinders to SuperDraft, and you get a little deposit bonus. Nobody can't hate on a good deposit bonus. Now, SuperDraft, you picked out some players for us.
I most certainly did.
Can you walk me through them?
Yeah. So pitchers, like your two easily top options, in my opinion, are going to be Burns at a 1.8x multiplier. That's just far too high. It's clearly a bad multiplier, but he's the top option. Like, his downside is not much. His upside is absolutely through the roof at that price or that multiplier. He can end up with a 30-point outing, which will get you 60 points right off the bat. So I believe I have him locked into all my lineups. And then Musgrove is at a 1.8x multiplier too. Just solid overall play. I think more people will go with Heaney than they will with Musgrove, but I don't think that's the better play. Like, Heaney can easily end up getting blown up in this spot. Musgrove, not a great matchup versus Milwaukee with all those guys healthy, but he's been an absolute stud so far this season. So those are the main two pitchers, and then probably the top overall batter is Krylov. He's a 1.6x multiplier, absolutely mashes. Good matchup versus Dean Kramer. Like, it's just, if he hits a home run, you're just going all the way up the leaderboard, depending on what his ownership is. Those are my favorite plays over on SuperDraft. That is my favorite site out there. Guys, go ahead and get signed up for it.
Your favorite site out there? How does, I mean, for somebody who hasn't, who's just going to go in and sign up now and plug in the promo, give me like the quickest synopsis of the best way to build line. It's not typical like what we do with the DFS stuff. What's the best way to be successful over there?
Take for MLB, like, you find the top overall pitchers, and then you kind of figure out, like, based on the multiplier, what are the ceiling floor projections, and a lot of times there'll be one or two or three guys that just completely stand out, and tonight's Irvin, it's Burns, it's Musgrove. You throw in those pitchers, just hope that they don't have a horrible night and get those locked in 100 points from your pitching. And then with the bats, like, stacking is obviously advantageous, especially in good spots like Coors. Or I like to find stacks where there's a little bit of just bad multipliers. Like, I think Kepler's 1.5x, I want to say. Krylov is 1.6x. So, like, I'm doing almost entirely, like, 2- and 3-man Minnesota stacks with a 4- or 3-man other stack, like Tampa Bay or Texas or San Diego, where you can get some better multipliers. So that's kind of my plan for the night. Anytime you can get a high multiplier stack, which Seattle is pretty often a high multiplier stack that you can get, if the team just has one good inning, Like, it's baseball. It's volatile. So finding high multiplier stacks is probably the best way to do it over on SuperDraft.
There you go, guys. A quick lesson right there from, dare I say, the most accomplished SuperDraft player in the history of that site. So we may just
Somewhere close.
we may have to, we gotta. Sometimes I do a show with Kid Yahoo, Kirk Dees, because he dominates Yahoo. You may be what we call Kid SuperDraft may be stealing some infringement there on him, but something SuperDraft, SuperDraft, Superman SuperDraft.
I mean,
I don't
I'm
know.
mostly just the news site guy. Anytime a new site pops up, I'm hammering every single thing I can in there before other people figure it out.
Hammer it, do it. Let's get to some hitters now. I'm gonna start out with first base. I like to skip over catcher because sometimes catcher's a little boring, and we'll circle back if we have time. But first base, usually a loaded spot tonight. I'm not seeing a whole lot. I've got my eyes on one guy that I really like because he moved up in the order here. He's still fair enough salary. That's Miguel Sano. He's moving. I'd prefer him against a left-hander, but I'll take him in a big team total against a right-hander because he moved up to the cleanup spot. So that's the guy I'm probably going to play on most sites. But talk me through some of your first basemen that you got your eyeballs on.
I mean, Freeman is probably one of the better options on the entire slate, going up against Richards, who just hasn't been great so far this season. Decent ballpark. Like, he's probably the top overall raw points option on the entire slate. If you want to go a little bit cheaper, Voigt's sitting there at 4K, Krylov sitting there at 4K. Both those guys grade out as fantastic plays. So, like, realistically, you can round out your stack, or I like to either play Voigt or Krylov or pay up for the top guys like Ohtani, like Freeman. Sano is still in the mid-tier that you are a big fan of. But, yeah, it's pretty much like round out your stack, pay up, or pay for Voigt or Krylov.
Okay, fair enough. First base pretty easy tonight. You got that one. Let's shoot through some second basemen. All right, second base. Again, not a great position tonight. Let me ask you this, Grant. Are you a BVP believer?
Not really.
Not really. Oh yeah, I mean I get it. Most people, but so there was nobody that stood out to me at second base tonight. Nobody looks good. I mean, I guess probably the highest projection of the night is going to go to a guy like Ozzie Albies, and I can see all that. But there were some other guys who I had serious question marks. So what I like to do is in a situation like this, okay, here's some guys I've highlighted based on some of the things I've thrown together. Now let me take a look at BVP. Just can I break the tie here with something just to set me over the top? And tonight, I like a little Jose Altuve in a fair price, at least on Yahoo. He's got a really good price of only $15. He's been pretty good against Kershaw. He's riding a 17-game hot streak, so he got the hot streak thing going too, the BVP thing going. I just kind of like I'm leaning towards Altuve tonight. I think they can get to Kershaw here in this spot, but what do you think about Altuve? What do you think about Albies? Or who's the guys you got your eyes on?
They're two of the top raw points guys, but I mean, I think you're better off either rounding out your stack or paying down. I mean, Cesar Hernandez is sitting there at 3.9K, batting leadoff, going up against Skubal, who's been a little bit better recently, but is not an overall great play. Owen Miller is getting the 7-hole up against Skubal. He's an easy punt if you want to pay 2K for him and then pay up at both your pitcher slots. But outside of that, yeah, it's either paying up, taking a Cleveland second baseman, or rounding out your stack. And second base is just kind of trash today. So it's pretty much anyone that fits, go ahead and throw it in there.
Okay. I can get behind that too. Now we're going to go to third base. Okay. We got a few more options here, I think. I think there's some guys who jump out to me a little bit more at this position. Projection, raw points, guy like Josh Donaldson jumps out. He's looking pretty good. If you like guys who are absolutely on fire, there might not be a hotter hitter in MLB than Joey Wendell, whatever his name is, Wendell against Keller. He's there. He's batting fifth tonight. You got that going for you. And then I guess I don't know if I'm not going to call him maybe my special dong of the day, Anthony Rendon. I always like Rendon against a good lefty, so you got Rendon going there. What do you think about third base?
I mean, yeah, third base, my favorite is probably Jose Ramirez. Donaldson's top point per dog, but he's going to be played pretty heavily on this slate. So if you want to play him, go ahead. I mean, Minnesota's a clear top stack on the slate, and I'm probably going to go with it a decent amount. And Donaldson's the guy that grades out as the best overall play from that lineup just because of his price tag. But Jose Ramirez is a very solid one going up against Skubal, who's struggled many times during the season. Outside of that, I think Longoria and the Giant stack is super interesting. I don't think they're going to be heavily owned. The roof is open over in Arizona. I think it's just overall a pretty solid spot for Longoria and pretty much the rest of the Giants. So 3.9K, you can get him at low ownership. You can get him at low price tags for most of them. Those are he's a guy that I think you throw in tournaments if you're stacking up the Giants. Outside of that, like Ursula is cheap, batting fourth up against Matt's got the platoon split. Justin Turner over on Yahoo, I want to say, is like $8. Just far too cheap there. Going up against Greinke, not the easiest matchup, but he's just a solid overall hitter that I really don't care. Anyone else like doesn't really stand out too much. Moncada, if you want to, Chapman, if you want to, both in decent spots. But Donaldson and Ramirez are the top two plays, and then I think outside of that, like Longoria and a Giant stack makes a lot of sense to me.
Fair enough. Let's move to some shortstops. Here we've got it's an okay position. I've got two guys highlighted at the top of my list. Just the Lindor, Francisco Lindor, basically just because of the money. He's just not that expensive, and he's just a good hitter. At some point, he's going to get it together, and he's going to make us all regret not paying for him at this small price tag. And then Gleyber Torres is starting to heat up for the Yankees, and they get a left-handed matchup tonight with a pretty big team total. So I'm on those guys, but there's a few other guys out there. Maybe you can talk me into somebody else. Who do you got at shortstop?
I mean, you can always pay up for Tatis or Turner. Tatis going up against Burns, probably not the best play in the world, but he's just so good it doesn't really matter. Rosario is cheap at 3.8K, I want to say. Going up against Skubal again. Skubal's really struggled versus righties. Shows to be a pretty extreme splits pitcher, so any righty in the Cleveland lineup, as I keep saying, is very solid in play. Torres is the guy that mentioned that I think it's probably one of the better cheap options on the entire slate, as a lot of these Yankees are. Outside of that, like if you want to throw Polanco into your twin stack, he's not going to be heavily owned because he's expensive, and it's a great way to differentiate your Minnesota stack. Crawford going up against Martin, who's not a very good pitcher, gets real wild. He's 4.1K, dome's open over in Arizona again. Big fan of that stack. And then, I'll talk more about stacks, but no Texas bat really grades out as a great play. But when you consider how heavily owned Heaney is, I don't mind throwing in any of those bats or stacking up Texas, because Heaney does struggle a lot with fly balls, struggle a lot with hard contact. So I just wanted to mention that before we even get to stacks, because I haven't mentioned any Texas bats. I'm going to be playing a decent amount of them, I think.
Oh, little teaser for us. All right, we'll talk about stacks in just a minute. Let's shoot through some outfielders we like first, and then we can get to the juice, which is the stack. So outfielders, I had a hard time here, man. I had a hard time trying to identify some. Like you could go with an Aaron Judge against a left-handed matchup. He's starting to come down to earth a little bit. He was just absolutely out of this world for a little while. Austin Meadows is always going to get one of your higher point per dollar projections on some of the sites because he just always grades out really well. So Austin Meadows, Max Kepler tonight, a guy who jumps out to me. Big projection there against Kramer. We already talked about a little bit about some Minnesota guys. I kind of like Minnesota tonight. And then I don't know how popular it's going to be. I don't have the ownership in front of me right now, but boy, I like me some Kyle Schwarber tonight. I don't know. It's not the greatest matchup in the world against Maley, but I think Maley can obviously has shown he can be beat. Kyle Schwarber's a pretty good hitter. I like that one. Those are some of my outfielders I like, but I'm sure you're way off the beaten path here, right?
I mean, not too far. I think Chris Davis is interesting, even though he's trash. Just going up against Heaney, got the platoon split. Heaney gives up a lot of hard contact, a lot of fly balls. So the ghost of Chris Davis in there at 2.2K is definitely an interesting guy to look at. Kepler and Krylov are by far my two favorite outfielders, not even remotely close. I love the Minnesota stack today, as a lot of people will, but I don't think it's going to get nearly the ownership that it should. Acuna, solid guy going up against Richards with a little bit reverse splits. Upton at 3.3K going up against Yang, who's really not much of a major league caliber pitcher. Dickerson, Yastrzemski, both guys I'm looking at quite a bit because of that San Francisco stack. Dickerson's real cheap with the platoon split, batting in the 3-hole. Just solid overall spot and a guy that I really, really like on the slate. outside of that, like nothing really stands out a ton. I mean, Judge is fine. Rosario's cheap, but he doesn't have the platoon split. Otani's not got the platoon split, but Yang's probably not going to go more than 4 innings. Soto grades out as a very good pitcher going up against Molly, who has pretty decent splits, and Soto's just good. If you want to stack up Atlanta, Ozuna's solid. Ozuna's a really good play over on Yahoo. But yeah, like that's pretty much it. Like stack up Minnesota, stack up the San Francisco outfield, stack up some Texas bats, and throw in Chris Davis, and you can pay up for both DeGrom and Scherzer pretty easily.
Fair enough. We're going to talk about some stacks here in just a minute. I want to remind you guys, get your questions in chat, because about 5 minutes, we're going to start answering all the questions. So get them all in there. We'll answer them all. And I saw one question flow by earlier, and I forgot to ask you, but the chat wants to know what you're drinking there. They see you drinking. They want to know what you're drinking on.
Sparkling rosé. I'm no longer a champagne guy. I moved on to sparkling rosé. Just adds a little bit more of a kick to it.
You're a little bit more refined. You're a little bit more refined, man.
Yeah, so, apparently I've moved on from the Fireball days. I'm not proud of it.
Oh, yeah. Good for you, man. Good for you. Yeah, everybody's got to grow up every once in a while, Grant. The Fireball, you got to put it behind you, man. But it was a fun time. All right, so let's talk about some stacks now. You got all these numbers here. You're more of a stat guy than trying to pick out individual home run guy. So talk to me about some of your favorite stacks here today in relation to ownership and everything else you see out there.
So there's a few that I'm just fine with, and I'll throw in there. Cleveland, Tampa Bay, and the White Sox all grade out as solid stacks. Minnesota is going to be highly owned, but they're still probably my favorite stack on the board. Like, they're just in a fantastic spot and should absolutely crush here. It's good weather. Everything points to them being the top stack on the day, and I don't think they're going to have nearly the ownership that they should. But the two off the board stacks that I really like, I think San Francisco has almost no ownership outside of Buster Posey. They want us to talk about catchers. Play Buster, play the Giant stack. Like they're going up against Martin. It's 95 degrees out in Arizona. Dome was open. Martin gets wild. He's given up a decent amount of bombs. Like, he's not a great pitcher. San Francisco is the most under-owned stack on the entire slate, outside of maybe Texas. Like, Heaney has been in negative points twice this season. He's given up like just boatloads of home runs. There's power, and I know that Heaney generally doesn't give up a ton of power to lefties. He can still do it, but like, he's not a bad pitcher. He just gives up bombs like crazy. And you've got the lefties in the lineup all hit a decent amount of fly balls. Gallo, Calhoun, Lau are all solid bats, and Solak, Garcia, Chris Davis, Kenner Falifa, just absolutely just good enough bats to do some damage against Heaney, who's the chalkiest pitcher on the entire night, and it's not remotely close. So don't ever play a guy that's prone to blowups, even if he's a solid overall pitcher. If he gives up a ton of bombs, then just play the team against him. So Texas and San Francisco are my two favorite stacks on this slate by a mile, followed by Minnesota.
Interesting. So I'll just throw mine out there that I'm with the Minnesota thing too. I think that might be the safest one is Minnesota. I also have I think there's a fair level of safeness in the Angels. I think the Angels can be okay against Yang. They don't strike out much. Of course, I'd like Trout to be in there, but they're all right. I think they're going to get it rolling here eventually. Off the board, I'm going to go off the board for you here, man. What about? I like the Dodgers. I like the Dodgers here. I think Zach Greinke is obviously not the same guy he used to be. Feels like he does a lot of this with smoke and mirrors these days. And when he goes bad, he goes really bad. And I think the Dodgers maybe could get some things together. And listen, the Astros bullpen. The bullpen's one of those things where it's just not talked about enough. That's a bad bullpen right now. And if you get to the bullpen early, you could do some damage. So I kind of like going against Greinke here in this spot. But we've come to that time of the show where we are going to bring in Devin, the producer. Devin, jump on in here, man. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. How about you guys?
We're working through it, man. We got about 15 minutes left, and I think it's time. What do you got? You got something good for us today? How's the chat been acting?
Yeah, chat's been lively today. Let's see if we can get some more people to hit that like button. glad you guys touched on what Grant's drinking. That was what I was going to lead off with. Second thing, though, I'm looking at the Slate IQ, and obviously there's still time for them to update the numbers. But, I'm looking at the Yankees stack coming in. There's highest owned winning stack. Still has leverage over the field.
Brian, what do you think about the Yankee stack there, man? I'm kind of like, I don't know, man. I like some of the pieces in their lineup, but as a stack, they're not jumping out to me right now. But what do you think about them?
I mean, I think too many people, I think our ownership might be a little bit low on them because you got Voit, you got Torres, up at the Ursula, all cheap, even Odor. You can make it work really easily, and people want to pay up for some top price arms or double stack it. I'm fine with it. I have no problem. But I think that the ownership's a little bit low on it. I think that Slate IQ, if I remember correctly, has the total ownership from the team. But I think we currently have Odor and Brett Gardner projected at 0% ownership, which I don't think that's going to happen. So once they update that, it should end up moving a little bit more towards them being a negative leverage play.
Odor, the darling of the bat.
Oh, you know who else is? Andrew Haney. The bat loves him a little Andrew Haney too. So that's why, like I was saying, that's going to be a popular play. And sometimes, like Grant said, that's just not always he's not always the guy you want to go with. So take that for what it's worth.
All right. How about we bounce one between the two of you guys per question? We'll start with Grant.
Yep.
All right. Grant Eric wants to know DK tournaments thoughts on Scooball. I don't think we actually touched on Scooball, did we?
I prefer Irvin in the cheaper range. But if you want that, it's fine. He still has pretty decent K stuff. I'm more on the Cleveland bats, so if you don't want to play Irvin, he's a fine cheap play.
All right. Tony wanted to know if there were any particularly good hitting or pitching umps out, so I'll leave that up on the screen while we get to this next question.
I think I can look at it real quick, but
looks like
looks like extreme hitters are Hill, Musgrove, Keller, Greinke, Burns, Kershaw. Extreme pitchers are Gilbert, Irvin, Gaussman, and Martin, which makes me like Gaussman a whole lot more.
All right, Chop. Jacob wants to know, getting a little frisky with an Atlanta stack, would you leave Acuna off, or is that too crazy?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit. I probably would want Acuna in there. I mean, he's by far their best hitter. And if you're taking a 4 or even a 5-man stack, there's other ways you can get a little bit different. I probably want that guy in there, but it's a stack, man. Your stacks are weird because you're really looking for a really bad pitching, not as much a great hitting performance. You're looking for a bad pitching performance. It's got to be an outlier for your pitcher, for a pitcher to give up that many runs, and then the bullpen comes in and gets hammered. So anything can happen if a team scores you 10 or 11 runs and wins you via stacking. Anything can happen with any of them, but I think I probably want Acuna in my stack.
All right, don't forget to hit that like button. Grant Eric wants to know, what DeGrom's on a pitch count? Was there any talk about that?
I'm sure they haven't said anything, but I'm sure he's going to be slightly limited because it's first start back. So
I think
we don't know what it is. Just expect slightly less than we normally see from him.
I believe Eric C. in chat followed up by saying there was going to be an inning-by-inning assessment according to reports. So, Chop, Eric wants to know, DK tournament, Scooball and Burns. Would you do that as your pairing?
DK tournament, Scooball and Burns. Burns, I can definitely get behind. Scooball, you know what? I have a guy who I know that watches baseball a lot closer than I do as far as the game. But he says Scooball's got some good stuff. Hasn't quite translated on the field, so but I guess I could kind of trust it. But I'm definitely could get behind Burns for sure. But and then back to the DeGrom thing real quick. Yeah, he's not going. I don't know how far he's going to go tonight, and who knows? We saw the guy pitching against the Mets last night almost went for a complete game with on 90 pitches. So you just maybe DeGrom gets there on 90 pitches, but even in six innings, this guy could put up the best score of the night just in 6 innings against this lineup. But who knows?
All right, Grant Allen wants to know, Kepler, or would you pay down to Larnack?
Kepler.
All right, Chop David asks, Heaney and Acuna or Giolito and Kepler?
Giolito and Kepler.
All right, Grant. Sean wants to know, well, really more of a comment. Richards has been better, made some mechanical adjustments. You thought maybe any plays on Richards tonight?
No.
Not on it. Sticking with Irvin, huh?
I'll stick with anyone but Richards. I'd rather play Gausman's a much better play.
All right, Chop Flores, Mark, friend of the show, wants to know. Oh, I guess this is for Grant. Grant, what was on your Postmates menu today?
I'm in Vegas, so I'm going to Gordon Ramsay's steak tonight.
Oh, this guy rubbing it in on us. He rubbing it in on us.
Jeez. All right, Chop. Tony wants to know DK tournament catcher picks. Grant gave Buster Posey. You got any others?
I'm gonna just, this guy's going to Gordon Ramsay. I'm having some ramen noodles. This is crazy stuff. But like catchers, you're gonna get a good projection on Gary Sanchez batting fifth, and that's fine. Mitch Garver is a fine catcher, and outside of that, I don't mind the Buster Posey pick, but I don't know, super cheap one. Let me see if I can find a super cheap one for you. Oh, you know what? Oh, I got one. I got one for you. Super cheap. James McCann, known lefty masher. Known lefty masher.
Like Gordon Ramsay, idiot sandwich play of the day. James McCann. Grant Flores Mark asks, Morton versus Red Sox?
I wouldn't.
No?
There's too many good pitchers on the slate.
All right. Chop. Mark wants to know, not high on Flaherty tonight. Are you playing any Flaherty?
Oh man, maybe Grant differs from me here, but I just don't want to play any pitcher really. Not even DeGrom. I wouldn't want to play against this White Sox team. So now with this many pitchers, I think we can start to knock off some of these guys.
All right, Grant, let's go to Slave wants to know, do you think on Yahoo it's better to go with stars and scrubs for tournaments? And how do you do your two pitchers on Yahoo?
I generally like to pay up at pitchers. Like I generally you can always find, like Justin Turner is $8 tonight, I think. Like you can always find super cheap bats that are just great out as great plays. So yeah, I generally try and pay up for two of the best pitchers on the slate. So DeGrom's a little expensive. I wouldn't go there, but like a Scherzer Musgrove or Scherzer Burns or something like that is probably the way to go over on Yahoo, and then get the cheap bats on this big of a slate. There's always enough cheap bats.
That was Justin Turner, you said, on Yahoo?
Yeah.
And just looking up, he's got some pretty good BVP. I don't know if you guys are interested in that. 25 at-bats, 8 hits, 1 home run, 3 strikeouts. All right, Chop Frederick, rounding back out that Flaherty question, any love for a White Sox stack?
No. I mean, in a stack, I mean, you're stacking, you want something out there. You want something great. Like those guys putting up 5 runs, that's probably not going to get there unless you're getting 5 home runs out of it or something crazy. So, and I think they're good, and I think they can give Flaherty problems, but is it enough problems to win you a tournament? Probably not. So I could probably not stack. I could probably stay away from Flaherty and at the same time not stack the White Sox. It's not that big of a deal.
Just hope he comes out and has an okay outing and 3-4 runs. All right. Sean says, I like the Nationals. Nobody's talking about them. Grant, any thoughts?
I know that Chop likes Schwarber. I like Bell and Soto, so I don't mind it.
All right. Eric asks, rank your top 3 SPs and DK. Chop.
Top 3, I'm going Scherzer, Burns, and because our boy Kirkwood just dropped a great little nugget in chat, Narrative Street, I'm going to go Giolito.
Nice.
Like it.
Yep, you gotta love it. All right. Grant J wants to know, better stack for single entry on DK, Giants or Braves?
Giants.
All right, twin stack with Kirilloff at first base instead of Sano to be different. Chop. Herrick wants to know.
Yeah, I mean, if the ownership dictates that Sano is going to be that much more than, like, in a vacuum, I like Sano more. But if the ownership is telling you he's way over Kirilloff, then yeah, you can go Kirilloff.
I don't think he was too much chalk before, but obviously that can change. Still got plenty of time before lock. Christian here following up with a DeGrom comment. Luis Rojas reiterates that Jacob DeGrom won't be under any sort of pitch or innings limit in his return tonight. Well,
Yes, always trust what people say.
just
That's never gone wrong.
unsourced in YouTube chat. You gotta love it. Flores, Mark, Grant, or Chop, can you get behind Morton and Gaussman on DK as your pairing?
Definitely Gausman.
Not Morton, no.
Man, no, I couldn't even get behind. I couldn't get behind Morton. No, not at Boston. He hadn't even looked that good this year in general, and now you're facing off against a team that is clearly a different hitting team with Alex Cora as the manager, if you catch my drift. So I don't know if I can get behind Morton.
There you go. Don't play Morton. Just go on play bigbrain.com and do the Boston Red Sox trivia game. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Frederick wants to know thoughts on Savali tonight. Grant?
No.
No? Dean asks, why didn't Grant invite me to Gordon Ramsay's?
Sorry, Dean. I saw Dean last night. Not tonight. It's date night.
Needy, clingy Dean. Come on.
Classic. That's what they all call him.
Let's see. Getting through the questions, coming up to the end of the show. Don't forget to hit that like button. Sean coming in with a Scherzer fact. He has 10-plus Ks in only 2 of his 9 starts. I feel like you're going to need 10 Ks from your SP1 at least.
First of all, he notoriously starts off the season slow, and it takes him a little while to get fully stretched out. I don't think it was over 100. Huh?
I just said he's a slow starter. He's just a slow starter.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Like, doesn't mean he can't get 10-plus Ks in this spot easily.
Matt wants to know, Blue Jays to get to Kluber or by chance? Chop, you on any Blue Jays bats?
I'm not stacking them, although, I mean, I'm not stacking them. You could one off, like, his guy's coming off of he's coming off of a no-hitter, right? Like, yeah, that was the last outing he had on the 19th. Like, guys coming off of a game like that could have a big down game the next time out. You put a lot of effort and pitches into that one game, so it could definitely be a downfall game. So, but I'm not stacking them up. I don't mind one-off and some trying to find a home run out of Vlad Guerrero or something like that. I'm not stacking, but at the same time, you never know. But the problem with the Yankees, if you want to stack against them, and even if he has a poor game, as long as they somewhat close, you're going to turn it over to a legitimate bullpen. So then you still got to get runs off of them, and that's not easy to do either.
All right, Tony wants to know where the good hitting weather is today. I'll go through Kevin Roth's Weather Edge app while we get to this one. Grant, you want to list your favorite outfield bats, maybe top 3 or 4?
Groff, Kepler, Acuna.
All right, Shop. Well, I guess Sean has another comment about Giolito. That price is a trap. Cardinals always give Flaherty plenty of run support. Does that concern you at all?
Yeah,
Grant?
that's no. That saying that a team will give this player, there's no correlation between hitters hitting better for anyone. It may have happened for DeGrom.
Except for DeGrom.
That's
the only one. Yeah, that's the only one. Where there's something they
clearly all hate him and just
they strategically don't score for him.
They just let him go hit the home runs. That's all they have to worry about. Let's see. Jay wants to know stacking both Minnesota and San Fran on DK single entry. Better catcher play, Posey or Garver? It's a good one.
Slightly in towards Garver, but I like them both.
All right. Let's see. Flores, Mark, Chop, rank these stacks. Twins, Braves, Cubs.
For me, Twins, Braves, Cubs.
Nailed it. All right, Grant. Doug wants to know FanDuel single entry with Max and San Fran and Cleveland stacks for all the money.
Yeah. You know me, I love San Fran.
There you go. Let's see. Jason wants to know Yang on DK for tournaments as an SP2. Chop. He hasn't been completely horrible and is bare bones priced.
No, he's not. He hasn't been horrible. He's actually not been bad at all. But you're facing even without Trout, it's not the easiest team to strike out. And I got a feeling, my gut says the Angels do a little bit of damage in this game. I don't want Yang.
Lots of options tonight, so I don't know if he hasn't been completely horrible. That's maybe not the strongest of points, but coming up to the end of the show here, so Chop, maybe you want to bring us home?
Yeah, guys, well, we appreciate those questions. I hope we got to all of them, or at least most of them. If not, we'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow, and I'll get to all your questions in. So we appreciate you tuning in, guys. Good luck in all those GPPs on this big 13-game slate. The chat is what makes this show go round. So hit that like and subscribe. Don't forget all the things I told you about RG Premium and all that other good stuff. We will be back. Oh, stay tuned. You got to stay tuned for crunch time. It is, if I'm not mistaken, it's Roth, Cardi, and STL taking you all the way up until lock. So for Grant Neefer out there in Vegas having a good Gordon Ramsay steak tonight while I suck on the ramen noodles. For Devin, the producer, who kept track of all the questions for us. I was your host, Hep Chopper, and we'll be back later. But for now, we are out of here.